welcome to TriEssence Martial Art channel. Another episode of Tai Chi Deconstructed, and today we're going to look at another very famous Tai Chi technique. But before we do that, I just want to address something that some of my viewers might not fully understood. So this whole series about deconstructing Tai Chi techniques or application is not to tell you how Tai Chi should be used in modern combat. Okay, I've actually made a video a few months ago about the dueling etiquette of the traditional Chinese martial art, especially internal martial art. And that video is aimed to basically set the premise or the context to how these techniques were invented, developed, and applied. And you should basically look at these explanations within that context. So it was designed and developed in a certain period where people engage dueling in a certain way, and therefore it doesn't really have a great solution for how people fight today. That's not to say that none of it is valuable in the modern combat world, but I would say that you would need to make certain changes for it to be fully efficient. But this video isn't about to examining how to make Tai Chi more adaptable to modern combat, but rather to see it in a historical context of what the techniques and the applications are probably useful originally, right? So this video is more about the authentic original application of Tai Chi rather than its modern context, right? So it's pointed to argue with me about how it doesn't work in modern combat, because that's not what I'm claiming. Because in modern combat things are very different, right? When people are able to move back and forth, side step, and then doing kind of jabbing and kicking, it makes it very difficult to fully engage. A lot of the time, most of the fight spend more time in almost like a kiting match, where people is constantly jabbing for distance and trying to poke at the guy and hopefully for a miracle KO. I mean, they have times where they go full in and then they engage, but that don't happen all the time. For a few reasons. And one of it is that they have to fight for a couple of rounds over 15, 20, 30 minutes depending on the format. So they have to kind of conserve their stamina. So many reasons and limitations to why modern combat sports fighting this way. Right? But in traditional Chinese martial arts, especially in the internal martial art, they start the fight in a relatively close range, and and people look down upon you if you start off the fight and you just step back. That's considered inferior technique, and you pretty much loses the match if you just kind of step back. So that's why they're less willing to step back, which is why a lot of the technique and approach has the expectation that you are able to engage a person without him stepping back. You're not used to people who are always tightening the distance. So that's one big limitation to these traditional approaches to combat. So that's why you have to look at in this specific context for all of these explanations to actually make sense. And of course, this approach don't really work that well in a modern combat sport, in the ring or in sparring, but it does work in a self-defense situation. If you're in a bar or I don't know, wherever else, in a parking lot, and somebody come up to you, they're not gonna keep you at the distance unless you got in trouble with a trained fighter. Otherwise, it's usually here. So in that kind of mundane context, then the traditional approach can still work. But there's some value when it comes to self-defense and everyday usage, right? But if you go in the ring, it had to be changed. Another thing is someone basically says that in my previous brushing knee, I was chasing the hand, and that's actually incorrect, right? So chasing the hand is like a thing in Wing Chun where they say don't chase the hand, chase the body. It means that if the hand is moving all over the place, you don't want to try to catch the hand, but you want to basically pressurize the center line, and in doing so, you force the guy to engage you, which is a very good concept and principle, right? That is very useful, and I fully agree with it. But the guy who commented that misunderstood the point of brushing knee. Brushing knee, these two moves, isn't to chase his hand, it's basically to clear the area. So I don't really care if his hand is here or there or there or there or there. The moment I'm starting this technique, I'm just drawing a general circle. So whatever he does, I'm going to cut it down. And then following it up was a hit to the face. So I'm not really chasing his hand per se, I'm just clearing the space. So I'm going to do that 2 circles blindly almost. I can literally just start the fight. I don't have to care what he does. I'm just going to come up like this and the next one I'm gonna hit him in the face. And another thing that I guess he didn't get is that I'm not simply parrying the hand, right? When it engages in this, there's certain pressure to it that disrupts it. Whether it's his head, you can see that bobs forward, balance, also there's some kind of impact pain on the arm. So this is actually a strike to whatever I come in contact with. It's not a simple, touching him and pushing it out of the way. Anything I make contact with, I'm actually hitting it pretty hard, that makes his arm basically very painful, and that hinders his next ability to do something else. So that's the two things. One, I'm not chasing the hand specifically, and two, if I make contact with his arm, it's going to disrupt it. And that's what gives me the upper hand. When he's experiencing that kind of drag, then he's not going to be able to see the hand coming to him. So this almost paves the way for the hit to the face. So those are two things that some people are kind of misunderstood. Alright, so when that is, after this is out of the way, let's talk about today's technique, which is grasping sparrow tail. So the first thing I would like to talk about is, I personally don't think sparrow tail is a very good translation. Sure, in the Chinese it's called 懒雀尾, and 雀 commonly is, can be interpreted as sparrow, like this little tiny bird. But none of those make sense because 懒雀尾 means to grab the tail. If you see a sparrow, sure, to its body proportion, the tail is relatively long, but the bird itself is like this size. So grasping its tail doesn't make sense. Personally, I believe that a better translation would be basically a peacock's tail. Right? Peacock in Chinese is called 孔雀. It also has the character 雀. But very much, so that word can be interpreted as 孔雀. We don't actually know exactly what 雀 it is because it wasn't specified in the original text. But if you think about peacock, it makes more sense. The peacock got a longer tail, and and you're grasping that tail. If you have your hand here, it kind of fits the peacock's tail. But again, it's just semantics. It's not important, but I just don't think sparrow tail is the correct translation. As always, we're gonna take some random sampling on the internet and we'll look at what I think people are misunderstanding when it comes to this application.
Tai Chi grasp the sparrow's tail application. When the opponent comes to grab the wrist, step into it, take the hand, chop downward towards the center portion of the chest, open the hand up and press.
So the first one, I don't even know what to say. Like Hadouken. So I think this is just a classic example of this guy basically mixed up his training. This is probably from karate or some southern style. Somehow it got mixed into his Tai Chi, or maybe the guy who taught him kind of mixed it up. But grasping sparrow's tail does not have an Hadouken. So this whole thing is ridiculous. Just including to show you how some of these applications are so ridiculous. On to the next one.
Here I want to turn my hand. This makes this arm straight, therefore susceptible. Anything straight can be broken. When I come up into here to put on that arm bar, it's pretty tight.
Okay, so this one is basically an example of taking the inner gate. So assuming the person punches with that hand, and that feet of course. And then so he first grabs this, and then giving in an arm bar in his own word, and then basically either break the arm or send him forward. Problem to this is a few things. Firstly, grabbing this hand would be very, very hard, but we'll get to that in a bit. But just know that this in itself is a problem. Right? And secondly, if I'm taking the inner gate, what happens to his other arm? Right? Unless he's got only one arm, he doesn't have the other arm, either he's going to hit me, or he's going to grab me, or he's going to do all kind of stuff. And even if I'm trying to do this, he can just simply step that way, and then get the back off my back, and then either he can try to choke me, or he can try to grab the waist, and there's a lot of stuff he can do that then prevent me from being able to execute this technique. So even though I do agree that this motion looks very well interpreted in terms of how the technique works, but it's just not going to work because you're not accounting for that, which is always going to happen. Right? Any person with half a brain, if you try to grab his one arm is going to come forward, and there's no answer for that in this technique, which makes it very bad. The next one. Because this one is very better in the sense that it's going for the outer gate instead of inner gate. Right? Inner gate is when you go between the two arms, and outer gate is when you go outside the arm. However, it comes back to the same problem, grabbing the foot. So he believes that you punch, I'm just gonna be able to parry it like that, and in doing so I'm gonna grab it, and either gonna pull or I'm gonna turn it around. The problem is that's almost impossible to work. Right? If you've ever been punched before, not by your own classmate, that is just pretending to punch you. Right? If you actually find somebody in real time and have people punching you, you know that grabbing it is pretty much impossible. If you make 100 attempts, you probably get 1 or 2 right, which is too low a statistic for it to be valuable. And that's if you're actually expecting him to punch, right? In a fight, a lot of things can happen. He could punch you, he could kick you, he could not do a straight punch. And also, who punches you in the chest like this? I mean, usually either the face or the stomach. So the chest level itself is not a common punch. So this whole technique is built on fantasy. It has very little value, if any, when it comes to application. And you might think, did I just say that my video is grounded in the context of the old dueling tradition, right? Not combat sport. That's very true. But even in the old dueling tradition, people are not gonna come up to you and do a jab. A jab is not really a thing back in the days. So if you look from the traditional context, it makes this interpretation even more pointless, right? Because traditionally, no one's gonna sort of punch like that. That's like a boxing thing, although they jab to the face. Traditionally, if I'm starting a fight, for example, just from what we've done so far, I could just start with a palm to the face, and he's not going to be able to do that technique. Or I can come up to him and just straight to the balls. Again, it will not work. Or circular hand, it will not work. Or strike down. Or whatever. There are so many things you can do in the traditional internal martial context. It just makes parrying a specific straight punch to the chest very pointless and worthless. There's so little opportunity that this will actually happen for this thing to be a valuable technique. Remember, talk about the master key? Right, the thing needs to be able to be generalized. It must be a universality to its application, and this is clearly not the case. Which is why I think this is a very bad and impractical interpretation. Alright, so this one is also going from the outer gate, but somehow he already has the guy's arm wrist grabbed. Doesn't really show how, but again, it's not going to happen. But let's assume, realize that I just suddenly grab the guy's arm without him being prepared. Right? This is kind of possible. And then he basically goes underneath the gun here, and then throws the gun off balance that way. So if you really get to this point, then this technique is kind of possible. Although I would argue that if a person is fully resisting, you're gonna probably struggle, right? Because the moment I grab him and I'm coming in here, he's gonna respond. He's not gonna. And of course you can argue that once he does that, I'm gonna do somehow something else. But yeah, it just makes this technique very hard to pull off. And if you can't pull this technique off consistently, then what's the point of having this technique? Just that 1 in 1,000 chance where the guy is not paying attention that you can sneak in and do it. Right, that's not a very good practice. And furthermore, I think this guy is confusing grasping swallowtail and diagonal flight. The diagonal flight is the one that basically actually throws a person. So this is more like how diagonal flight would happen. Because if you look at the video, right, in the end of the video, his body is literally going, his hand is here and his body is completely straight. But grasping swallowtail, the hand stops in front of you. It doesn't go there. So if you follow this technique to the ladder, you can't throw a gun, right? So if I'm calling him here and I'm doing this, I'm not going to be able to throw him sideways. To throw him sideways, I have to turn sideways. And that's actually not a technique. That's more in line with diagonal flight, which we'll talk in another video. So that's why I don't think this is the correct interpretation. The guy is confusing the two techniques. On to the next one.
Yang coil, in coil. This one trap, don't get too far. This one you hit it. So this is trap. This one twisted, this left, and this down.
Okay, Okay, so this one, on the surface, it looks quite plausible, right? So someone supposedly come for both his arms, and he's talking about how he does the stand out. Yeah, these things all have very specific leg position. So you have to go this way, and then he grabs it, and he has to tuck this in, comes here, and then does this. How was this overcomplicated, right? All comes razor. Why? So firstly, the person needs to engage in this position. I mean, like, how many times, like, assuming we're in a dueling position, how often would I try to do this to a person? Not really. I'm gonna try to hit him in the face, or hit him in the board, or hit him in the solar plate. I'm gonna hit him. I'm not gonna grab him first. So that's the first problem. And secondly, if I'm doing this, I mean, once he's already uncomfortable, he's gonna let go and switch around, right? No one's gonna hold on and get bent. And furthermore, I have to trap this arm before I can use. So I have to first hold on to this, and I have to trap this here to actually do this, right? I can't do this if I let his arm escape. If his arm is there, he's gonna grab me. Yeah, you can try to choke me, or you can pull the shoulder back. But there's a lot of things he can do if his arm is free. So I have to trap the arm. But trapping the arm is so hard unless the guy is a muppet and he's not actually fighting back. So it's very hard to make every step of every requirement fit in place before you execute this technique. And that's why I think, even though it looks kind of nice on the surface, but a lot of times, when I'm trying to do that, he's gonna fight me with that grip. He's not gonna let me just yank him there. He's gonna like push his elbow back and he's gonna do something else. And then sure, we're gonna end up being in a more like a push hand situation, which is fine. But it just means that the chance of you ever using this version of grasping Sparrow's tail is pretty much similar to zero. It's just not likely to happen unless you find somebody who's really slow reflex, or having Down syndrome or something, that you're able to, I mean, not making jokes on anyone who's got mental disorder, but it's that you have to be less than normal for this type of thing to actually work against someone who's actively trying to fight you, and that's the problem.
Again, we're here, we're in the flank, I turn and I go up.
And this last example, actually, an example that someone actually messaged me and asked me to talk about it. So this technique in itself is a legitimate technique, but again, it is not how grasping Sparrow tail are meant to be used, right? So I don't want to critique on the technique itself, because it's a legitimate grappling technique. The other foot in front, okay? So so basically we get in the grappling range, and I try to do an arm drag, and I lock him here, and once I get arm drag, I can basically throw him off balance. So yeah, you see that from time to time in wrestling and other grappling arts. So it is a legitimate technique. But the problem is, he's shoehorning an existing combat technique into a taichi's grasping swallow's tail. The reason I say that is, firstly, right, just like the other video a few back, this move, the hand kind of goes forward, it doesn't go to the side. But for this one to work, I need to basically grab his arm and yank him sideways. And that is a different technique. Some people might think, how you do the motion and how you apply it is different, but that's actually pretty stupid if you think about it rationally. Like, imagine you're the guy who's inventing Tai Chi back in the days. You have a technique that goes like this, but somehow you decided to practice like that. It makes no sense, right? Forms are designed based on existing application. So the technique, at least its original incantation, need to fit the application that it was designed from. It's weird that the actual application goes sideways, but the technique goes forward. That just doesn't make sense. And we can look at another example, which is in Mantis. We have a technique like that, and it looks like this. Yeah, notice how it's clear you're grabbing the arm, it's clear you're holding the elbow, and it's clear you yanking him sideways, and having this foot in front to trip him. So that will be basically here, and then that. And you can see that, in a proper arm drag type of technique, the application exactly fits, the motion exactly fits the application. The move goes sideways. Which further illustrates how this can't be this. There's something else that this technique is meant for. Adding to the point that guy, I think, I don't really know him, but I think he also teaches mantas. So there's a chance that he's just confusing his mantas technique, or he's using his mantas technique and grappling and trying to shoehorn its interpretation into Tai Chi. And that's quite a big problem because a lot of people nowadays, they take pre-existing modern combat technique that is being established, and then they try to find similarities in terms of motion in Tai Chi, and then try to merge the two and try to make Tai Chi seem practical. I personally think that's a bad thing because it actually just leads people to misunderstand Tai Chi and lose its original purpose. I mean, its original purpose might not be as great as the arm drag throw, but you still have to respect its original purpose and not completely change the technique into something else that weren't what the original creator intended to be. So then, what exactly should grasping sparrow tail be intended to be? So again, I'm going to be basing this explanation on my Tai Chi lineage and my Wushin Tongbei lineage. I've explained why based on these two lineage and everything from previous videos. I'm not going to waste time on that. And I do admit that I don't believe I have the ultimate correct explanation, but I do think my explanation based on everything I've seen so far makes more sense than everything else. But ultimately, you make your own decision whether my explanation makes more sense or something else's does. I'm not going to tell you that this is the truth. But after considering everything I know so far, I believe this to be more likely to be true than everything else. Right? That's all I'm doing here. So firstly, the technique, right? Basically, the hand goes here, and then there, right? For those that don't know what grasping sparrow tail looks like, and then there's a follow-up that goes this here. There's a follow-up that goes like this, push. So that's in a nutshell grasping sparrow tail, and mostly it's referring to the first one. So this is the grasping sparrow tail. Right? The rest are kind of add-ons or follow-ups to this, but this itself, this is like the peacock tail in my opinion. That's how you kind of grasp that peacock tail. So how do you actually use it, right? Again, I'll remind you that we're based on two principles, right? Outcome razor has to be simple and non-specific, and master key, right? It must be able to be generalized universality, not highly specific. And again, we take into consideration the dueling etiquette, or the approach to dueling that we stand here. We don't really know what each other are doing or how they're usually done. We're not like in that position. We just have to basically get off the bat and then try to win the fight. Which again, fits more how fighting happens in real life, right? Where people are just here, you come out and whack people. It's not gonna be a ready match where you start and someone says go and you fight. In that context, grasping sparrow's tail is actually very straightforward. It's way simpler than all those people are trying to make it. Basically, I'm just starting here. I'm rotating sideways to basically cover up my face and the meaty part of my body, making it more contact surface for strikes, less contact surface for strikes. And I'm just doing that. And you can even argue that the hand coming on the top semi-protects the face. Although I'm not sure if that's the case because in the form it's kind of here, it's not there. So I'm not sure if it is protecting the face, but it certainly can be. And then I'm just basically coming up and doing this to him. And you might think, like what the hell is this, right? What does that do? So basically, this is what we call an opening hand. That means I'm basically I'm not sure what he's gonna do, but he's gonna do something that almost covers for everything. So the moment I'm doing this, I'm just taking up space. And in that case, if he's throwing anything that's on the side, I'm going to basically just go into him and using my structure force, getting off balance. And if he does anything that's from the front, then I'll be able to catch him with it. So that's essentially it. It's basically going blind, and I'm just doing this so that my whole space in front is semi-covered. So that's literally what it is. It's a way to go blind into a fight. I'm just going to stand here, when stop here, do that. And while in today's scenario, you're going to probably have more hooks and stuff that come on the side. Traditionally, especially in Beijing, there's not a lot of side strikes in the old day Chinese martial art. Most of it is more linear, so there's a higher chance of you catching something that's coming from the front. This is almost very similar to 心理六合, right? They have something similar where they go like this. Although I don't want to draw a parallel because obviously two styles have no influence each other. They basically evolve separately, so they don't have anything. They don't have correlations. But it's similar idea that you're doing something that's covering everything going forward. Except the difference that in 心六合is much more compacted, whereas in this one it is more spacious. It has a different understanding to structure. But that's literally it. If I catch the hand, it will be here. If I catch that hand, it will be there. And then, if there's nothing in the middle, I'm just going to go for the middle. And once I do, the structure is what's going to show him off balance. But most of the time, you're not going to catch somebody space there, right? You're going to catch somebody, and usually it's on this arm, because that's, or on the other side if you stand on the other side. But that's how people used to do back in the days. And then you can see something similar, that's literally how Tai Chi start one of the push hand practice, right? They stand here, and then they start like this. And then, his hand is here. And that's how they start the whole push hand thing. So you can see that this grasping Sparrow's tail is literally how Tai Chi started push hand exercise. And why they start push hand exercise like this? Because back in the days, a lot of the times, that's how people prefer to establish contact. Okay? And it also makes sense why this move is pretty much in the beginning, right, of the Tai Chi form. This is literally the first move after Qi Shi, which is starting. This is literally the first move, and this explains why, because this is the start of the push hand exercise. And one of the the most basic way to open a fight. And assuming you open the fight, and you encounter a resistance, I'm not saying this is exactly how it will be, but let's just take this as an example. Then the next techniques make sense too, right? Because it is here, and it is there, and there. Now some people like to do with both hands, but I think in the traditional Yang form, it goes here, and then this one hand comes down. And so this hand kind of stays here, and they meet in front of the chest, and then they push forward. So basically what that means is once I establish contact and I feel this resistance, and I can't overpower him because he's also an internal guy that has good structure. Right? If he's not an internal guy, I just overpower him with my structure. But if I can't, then basically it comes here. So that's what this is for. And once it's here, you basically hit him with that kind of strike. And assuming he didn't allow that to happen, then that's where this comes in, right? So that's why the technique starts here. It goes there, comes back, pushes forward, and then do that. So that's pretty much the combo, and that's the only way that it really makes sense. All these other ones, if you look previously, especially like the arm drag one, if this one fails, like it doesn't quite make sense that you suddenly grab and then go into that. So this is the only way where everything kind of fits. Is that once I'm here, it's there, and then it's there. And if on some odd chance, I encounter the other hand, it's the same thing. I can still do that, push, and then grab back and push. So the follow-up still works the same. I just have to grab something. If I touch something, I'm going to grab it and then do the next attack. So this is literally just a way to grab something. It's a big surface, right? So whatever his hand, wherever it is, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to do the next move. That's pretty much how this works. And then you might think, okay, now, just now I was talking about how people don't always go straight punch, right? In traditional martial art back in the days, it could be a circular hand, it could be like a ball shot, it could be palm to the face, it could be a throw jab. There's so many things that could happen in different angles rather than a straight punch. So, in my previous deconstruction videos, I've been limiting to straight punches and hooks, just that to kind of for easier reference, right? But most of these techniques work on everything. Just like brushing knee, where I'm just blocking the entire surface area, so anything that comes in the space, I'm going to hit it and knock it down. In this way, it's the same. I'm just going to do this to the guy. So if he's doing a ball strike, right? This technique isn't going to cover the ball strike, but as he attempts to do the ball strike, I'm going to be here. So I'm going to hit him there, and this kind of prevent him having a proper ball strike. It might not stop it completely, but it's not going to really damage my balls. But at the same time, I'm just gonna go in. So if he's trying to ball strike, he lost already. And assuming he's doing, circular hand, it's the same thing, right? I'm gonna come in enough that I'm missing the part that actually hurts. So in circular hand, this part is what hurts. So if I'm stepping in here, then that is gonna hit me, but it's not gonna be as detrimental as what happens to him. So again, it kind of works in that way. Right, let's assume if he does a shy down, just for the sake of then again, right, we're going to be able to meet there, and then I might not beat him in terms of structure, but I'm kind of safe, and then that kind of also allows me to then do the follow up. So you can see that this kind of approach sort of works no matter what weird technique he's doing. It's a broad stroke that pretty much covers everything. It's not that great or intuitive when compared to throwing a punch to the face. It doesn't do that kind of damage, right? You're not gonna knock somebody out like this. But in a situation where you're unsure what the guy's gonna do, and you don't wanna, gamble wrong and then get your balls busted, then this is just a safe approach that kind of covers for everything. It's not great in terms of damage. You can't knock a guy out, but it's pretty safe. You're not gonna have serious injuries if you gambled to a disadvantage, right? Because if you're standing here and you're just going off on, moment the fight starts, you're pretty much gambling. You don't know what the guy's gonna do, right? Just like in some of the fights, even in the UFC, right? You've seen time where people gamble wrong. Like a guy, he was gambling for the guy to throw a punch, so that he would like dash to the side and do an overhook, but end up the guy actually did the knee. And his face goes into the knee and he gets knocked out. So those are examples of people gambling wrong. Okay, but in the UFC, it's okay. I mean, you lose a match, you lose money, you lose ranking, but it's a good gamble. But in real life, you don't want to gamble wrong. If you gamble wrong, you're probably gonna have much more serious consequences. No judges are gonna stop the guy from pounding on you once you get knocked out. Which is why traditionally Chinese martial art takes a more safer approach. They don't want to risk when they gamble, so they want to be safe. And this is basically how a safe gamble kind of looks like. You kind of have everything covered. It's not great in any specific area, but you're covered. And as long as you kind of have some contact point, then you can do the next point. And that's pretty much, in my opinion, what is the most logical and practical way to interpret grasping Sparrow's tail. Anything you want to add?
It's actually quite practical against kicks as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Because by the time you dissipate the force, because you will be off balance. By the time because you're actually closing in. So kicks, it's definitely get nullified, just like a hook, and you will be off balance. Knee-wise, by the time you manage to make contact, you will probably be off balance. So
yeah, but obviously, in a modern context, people wouldn't initiate a kick in this round. They will probably knee, but kick they will probably be a bit further away. So again, right, we have to constrain this to traditional contact, right? People usually stop the deal like this, usually with the hands down. So that's why traditionally we also don't like kicking. If you see looking Tai Chi, there's very few kicks and it's not emphasized on. Same goes for Xingyi and Bagua. They don't have a lot of kicks because when you find it in this kind of context, it's very risky to kick people. That's why most people just want to go in and then you use your structure to overpower the guy. But it's very important to interpret things in the original context rather than taking our context and looking in the modern standard. Anything else? Cool. So I hope this video has made sense to you. And if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And my name is Su Peng Yang Patreon. I'll be really appreciated. I'll have a whole array of Patreon exclusive videos where I go through the fundamental mechanics of internal style using scientific and anatomical explanation. So if you're into how to understand internal martial art without woo magic and chi power, then you should definitely consider becoming a Patreon supporter. So instead of pushing on here, you just pause it, you drop it. You have to drop it and then a bit better.
It's a little bit easier.
And you have the relaxed thinkingness once again, forward and then downwards. Correct. But if it doesn't, then you just push in through the contact point. So even if I don't touch him, I can start getting off balance. But in reality, if I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I need to resist it, maybe like, for a moment you open, and then you basically go back in. It's like down and then up. As always, a big shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for your support. It's your support that more motivating me to continuously making new videos that hopefully will help the community to better understand internal Chinese martial arts.
A special shout out to Mo for upgrading his support here, and a warm welcome for Darren Pickford. Welcome to my Patreon family. I hope you enjoy your stay and find my videos informative and interesting.
So thanks for watching TriEssence Martial Arts channel, and I'll see you next time.